how are the Zoom streets treating you? Not great. Not great. I lost yesterday. I lost the day before. I think I've lost maybe 3 days in a row. So lots of losing. But not lots of volume. I've been playing like fairly short sessions. And then I also lost a bunch of money at 10:20. So lots of losing. Losing everywhere. Just losing everywhere. Yes. Lots of losing. Gonna turn it around though. Gonna turn it around today. I finally finished my school obligations for this summer, so I can focus on poker. So nines, I actually prefer to 3-bet, 5-bet in the Zoom pool. Might be funny to see me doing this because this is a play I've critiqued so much as like not a great poker play. But I think in the Zoom pool it's best. Like when you can't make educated decisions post flop, it's better to just take the like guaranteed plus EV rather than, I mean, calling is going to be pretty plus EV too, but it's just so hard to play 4-bet pots out of position post flop in the anonymous pool. I'll try to get away from trips. Be a little bit more conservative with trips. I'll do what I can. At this point, I'm just hoping to make trips. Yeah, I don't play too much. I play a little bit. But I was just on StarCraft watching some Brood War replays. I do play occasionally. Bad fold with 7-5 offsuit. Just reading Discord instead of playing poker. Hold on, I should probably take this Discord off. Okay, so these three-handed pools I really like because I can pick up on what people are kind of doing. Like, so there's a player 4xing from the small blind, there's a player limping buttons, and he appears to be very loose, very passive. King 6 by default is a fold, but against a guy playing 300, I'm going to open. So the challenge is a prop bet that I'm in, that I'm losing, but it's a prop bet to have a certain win rate over 75,000 hands. That is the challenge. And I'm not in great shape. Right now I'm at 10.22 over 34,000 hands. These are challenge hands. I'm grinding the challenge. It's been not so great the last 1,000 hands. Maybe down 4K or so. Okay, so I'm gonna come clean with you, Moose Girls. I'm not a Drake fan. I saw Drake live one time at a Seahawks Super Bowl after party, and you know, I'm a Snoop Dogg fan. I'm not a Drake fan. I saw Snoop and Drake at the same time at a concert, and Snoop Dogg's great. Drake is meh. King 8, I'm gonna fold. It's a little bit tight. 10-8, I'm gonna barrel with. And just check the river. I'm not really sure what this is, but I'm not interested in calling or raising. So, I'm just gonna fold. Fortnite, I played one game. It wasn't really for me. I can see the appeal to it. I like the sort of arena format where there's like circles and shit, and you're like forced into an area. But I don't know. I mean, I only played like 4 games or something, so I didn't get a real good feel for it, but did not have too much fun. Alright, need to switch it up. I need a new table background. Gotta change something. Need to turn this around, guys. One thing I've done is I've turned off Table Tamer. Or I'm just using it for the hotkeys, but I'm not using it for the bet sizes. And that's an attempt to break autopilot a little bit and build more specific sizings. King 4 probably chopping. Okay, so give me a Drake song I should listen to. Give me a song I should listen to, and I will. Or like an album or something. How do I expose myself to this Drake? Drake. God's Plan. So I don't want to listen to it now because people have been complaining about listening to music that mutes the stream VODs. Which is a fair complaint. Like if you subscribe to watch VODs and then everything's muted, that's pretty disappointing. No, this is also pretty disappointing. What is this? Set of 95 hands. Okay, 12, 25, king 9. We're all in. Not thrilled about this situation, but there isn't really a better way to play this hand, I don't think. Which is a little unfortunate for us. I wanted to flop the other top pair. So king 10 on the river. I do mix in a low frequency bet with some boats. My favorite play is to check the river, but I think it's not good to always check the river. People say the three-handed games are tough. Personally, my results have been a lot better in the three-handed games than the six-handed games. Okay, turning two pair is great. Facing a twice pot bet is less great. And the river is just going to go like check, check. He has a straight a lot. Kind of happy to win this pot, I think. Interesting gutter to have. I think I'm not too excited about betting on the turn just because with that specific hand there aren't really rivers I'll be able to bluff very well. Like I guess I could bluff diamond river okay. Okay, so he limp called, leading. This is probably the guy that has been open limping buttons. I'm gonna fold the turn, but kind of okay with peeling also. face 2 quick checks. I'm kind of in the market to just show down these 10s. Maybe my opponent has like 10-9 or 9-8. Could certainly have like a queen or, you know, pocket kings or something also, but checking down is kind of what I'm in the market for. Facing 2 bets and a check. Okay, I'll check behind. Pocket 4s, I can bet the river, I can check the river. Both are fine. I went with a bet this time. Probably mostly checking. And then betting with like a 7 or some better hands. Okay. And just go for a check raise with the ace-8 of clubs. If he checked back with a 10, I got pretty punished. And that's definitely something that can happen too. Like, he can definitely just have a 10. He had an 8, which realistically is going to have a tough time calling the river bet anyway. I'm going to check, give up here. With this big blind cold call, I'm very afraid of this, so I'm not going to be running bluffs in this pot. Turning a flush draw is good, but there are trips on board. Actually, can probably open 9-2 of hearts against a shorter stack. Very good board to c-bet for the 9-2 of hearts. Now this hand, once I get called on the flop, like, I'm gonna barrel like a 10, a 6, a heart, but I'm gonna just check and give up. Unimproved. And pretty easy call down with the pair. Okay, King 8, I have folded a couple times, but I think in this pool, I want to be working this hand in. Feels like the pool is very good right now. Even though I'm losing, there's like enough... There's some janky stuff going on. Like, min 3-betting and cold calling 3-bets and limping, and... There's enough janky stuff that I'd like to be adding my flex combos, I think. Gonna just look at some hands because action's a little bit slow right now. These are hands from this week. Alright, so this is a heads up hand, and I definitely made a mistake here. Pre-flop. It's a very, very small mistake. And I kind of knew when I was making this call pre-flop that this was a mistake. And I was like, it's such a small mistake, it's fine. But I would like to see myself fold Jack 10 and call Queen Jack offsuit. So just like shift one combo tighter for the pre-flop call. Gonna float here with, like, I mean, I have 3 to a straight flush. Fairly standard float. And I'm gonna make a small turn bet. Kind of saying like I have pocket 7s and I want to fold ace king. If he calls the turn, I'm not going to bluff the river with this hand because I block the hand that I'm hoping will call turn fold river. So like I would bluff Jack 10 on the river, but King 9 of hearts is just going to be a bet turn, check and give up river. Anyway, call 3-bet, call flop, check back turn, and overbet shove the river. So here I'm representing flushes or pocket 6s or King 6 suited. And I got called. Opponent like tank called. And also, like, fuck, I think he has, like, the perfect check calling hand. So I felt a little bit like I ran into just, like, the hand that can't really fold to the overbet shove just because he blocks so many of my value combos. And he also is, like, at the top of his range for his line, just about. And I'm gonna bluff the river. Okay, so this hand was against a guy in the Discord who I hadn't talked to before, but I knew that this was like a Discord guy, and he knew who I was also. So we're 100 big blinds deep. It's perfectly fine not to have a 4-betting range here. Usually in 6 max I play a 4-betting range in these positions, but it's also fine just to not do that. And I decided I was not going to play any 4-bets in real time. He bets the flop and I call. He checks the turn, I bet, and he shoves and shows me Queen 9 of diamonds. So obviously I'm a little salty about like losing with aces, but I want to say I think he misplayed every street this hand. Personally, I could be wrong about that, but it feels like he misplayed every single street. Like, I don't like pre-flop. I don't like a flop bet with Queen 9 of diamonds. I like a turn check, but I hate a turn check shove. Queen 9 of diamonds feels like it should always check call the turn. Like, it's a 2-pair that dominates all my bluffs super hard. It needs the most protection. Like, or it needs the least protection of all of his 2-pair. So there was something particularly annoying about this hand where, like, I feel like a lot of his decisions are very common, where he's like, I flopped strong hand with tons of equity. I'm gonna bet. And then the turn, I'm gonna check jam and try to make it look like draw or whatever. But it's like you can check jam like ace queen, aces kings, but queen nine of diamonds like blocks my calling range. It like I don't know. I did not like any of these streets that he played with the queen nine of diamonds. Personally, but I'm sure he's a good player, and we're just kind of we play a bit differently, and he's got different strategies than I do, and that's fine. Doesn't mean he's necessarily wrong. I just personally would play very differently. Okay, I'm repping a 9. He shows me a 9. Oh, this hand was awesome. Okay, so this is Jeremiah. Jeremiah just won half this guy's chips, and he like he raised folded or something on the turn. Anyway, goes 50 call. I float the flop. I decided to float the turn under the assumption that I was going to get really profitable river bluffs against his check range. I felt like this guy was going to double barrel way too much, given that he just lost half his stack, and he's like now barreling. Like, I just don't believe he has anything. And then, so he checks the river. I'm pretty unhappy with this river card, but yeah, I'm still gonna bluff. He actually went into the tank and he found the call with king queen high, which is kind of sick. I mean, I'm not gonna get too in depth on his decision, because he was like confirmed recreational player. I will say it is very hard for me to have bluffs after calling flop, calling turn, and then shoving this river, because ace 3, ace 5, and 3-5 all get there. So my bluffs have to be kind of hands like this, or flush draws that, don't shove turn or flop or anything. Okay, 3-bet, queen 5 of clubs, check back flop, check back turn, check back river. Jacks are better than aces. All right, so this was like the next orbit against this same player. So I was very happy to flop 2-pair against him. I bet the flop, I bet the turn, and the river, I was not sure whether to value bet or not. Like, opponent can have flushes, he can have like some slow plays, he can definitely have like aces and kings and stuff. I ended up betting the river because he just called me with king high, so I'm not gonna check. Like, he could just have like ace 10, but not so sure about it. All right, so not a very eventful session. See, I don't really know what this comment means. Like, I think since he has diamonds, he knows you're more value heavy on the turn and decides to shove. Like, I understand it. I understand the idea you're saying here, but can you translate that into, like, exact combos? Like, like what exact combos of value does he expect me to have that shoving is going to perform better than calling? Like, so I bet like 280 into like 1,000. Like, I want to translate this into actual like concrete poker analysis. Like, so he does block diamonds, but they're also both pair diamonds. So like which, like, I just don't quite understand which exact hands like he's leaning me toward for quote unquote value, like, and why shoving is better against my value range. In general, this is a pushback that I make a lot on generic comments. Like how specifically, how exact, like I really like asking people to turn like 10,000 feet level comments into like concrete specific like combinatorics, because I think that's where, like, it's very easy to say like, you know, some very generic thing that like could be right, could be wrong, and it's kind of untestable. But if you make a more specific concrete statement, then it's something I can kind of like respond to. Okay, so like he doesn't block aces or kings, but why is shoving the turn better against aces or kings? Like, he can just call turn and then he's going to stack me on every single river, and if the board pairs, maybe he can even get away. Like, if he knows I have aces or kings, it's not superior to shove the turn than to call the turn. Okay, kind of fun turn card here with the 9 of diamonds. Going to just play a pure check raise on the turn, and planning on blasting most rivers. Like, I'm going to give up on a 3, a 6, and then some diamond rivers. Probably also a 10 or a 9 I'll just give up. Those are pretty rough rivers to run bluffs on. Okay, check calling, pot size bet. This hand I'm never gonna check raise on the flop. Turn, I like just folding. I mean, I've got the 5 of clubs. That's a pretty terrible card to call with on the turn. So this, I mean, I just don't. Just don't agree with what this guy is saying. This isn't how a 10-20 reg is thinking. Unless, I mean, maybe the guy's a fish and he's got some like really funky thought processes, but I don't think he's a fish. Like, he's in my Discord, he's a winning 10-20 reg. Like, I don't think he's thinking this the way you're suggesting. I think there's probably some other reasons he might be using to shove the turn, but I don't think it's what you're saying. I'm pretty sure if he put me on aces or kings, he would check call the turn. Okay, so we're back. The pool is three-handed again. Queen high somehow wins a showdown, which is a little bit surprising, especially against a flopped gut shot. Actually, a flopped double gut shot. That is a decent amount of value coming from general passivity of mid-stakes players. I'm guessing that was a recreational player, but still. I'm not going to say mean things. I'm just going to move on from this discussion. Sometimes you just have to disagree politely with the player in the Twitch chat and move on from the discussion. I think this spot is pretty close on the flop. I think I can fold because you bet 20, but if you bet like 9, I should probably continue. I'm gonna make a small raise against half pot. Okay, starting with check call with 2 overs and backdoor nut flush draw. And I don't like bluffing the river here. It's possible to bluff the river, but I kind of think, like, once my opponent checks back the turn, he's not going to fold pairs. And if he's not going to fold pairs, betting on the river is not going to do very well. Because he's going to call with everything better, fold everything worse. And that's not great. Okay, Jack 10, turn an open ender. Don't love blocking diamonds here for our bluffing hands, but that being said, this will be a bluff, given that I have Jack high and I don't have a heart. Asterix 678. Thanks for the subscription, man. Thank you. Welcome aboard. 9 deuce. Okay, I'll play the 9 deuce against pure min raise. And I'm going to 4-bet the 10-10. So post-flop, this hand can be played a lot of different ways. My favorite way, generally, is to small bet the flop, check the turn, and then play rivers. This is a pretty good turn card for me to see. Now, I don't have a great bluff catcher against his betting range because, like, I block King 10 and Jack 10. That being said, I'm very high up in my range, given it's a 4-bet pot, and there's a pair of queens on the board. And this is a very easy check call on the river, having 10s with a 10 of clubs. It's a little painful if he has, like, King Jack, because he will value shove that. But it's pretty hard for me to have, like, to stick with just, like, aces and kings and then, like, slow played trips. That's not very many hands. I actually think having, like, the 10 of clubs too helps a lot, because in position should have, like, a ton of suited combos. So, like, 7-8 suited, 6-7, 5-6 suited, even a hand like 10-7 suited can take his exact line. Obviously, like, we're a little sad, you know, it's kind of bullshit that he 3-bet sixes and flops a set. Like, sixes should not be in the 3-bet range. Big blind versus small blind. At least not in any range that I've ever constructed. But it's okay. Fight on. Fight on. Okay, checking back 5-6. I do want to stab a lot on the flop, but this hand like turns kind of nicely. Like I can turn a bunch of gutters, backdoor flush draws. I can turn a 6 or a 5. Like I'd rather stab with something that like, say I had 10-5 offsuit and I just like didn't have good ways to improve on the turn. Like 10-5 no spade. A hand like that I'd be more interested in stabbing. Ace 10 going to check fold. Dude, 6s is the absolute nuts. That guy just knew. That guy just knew 6s is the absolute nuts. I take back everything I said. He played his 6s goddamn appropriately. He 3-bet pre because he was building a pot for himself. Jack 7, gonna check, decide the turn. And I slightly prefer a river check to a river bet. Ooh, this is a fun hand here. Have a nut gutter and unblock all of the backdoor flush draws. This is a hand that I do a lot of barreling with. Jack 4 feels pretty darn close. Feels pretty close. Well, I I've only recently started to like learn solver ranges. I've almost always played like more polarized big blind versus small blind. So like if six is three bet, I would definitely expect them to call a four bet. But generally, I would expect 10-7 suited to be in a three betting range more often than pocket sixes. So that's my difference. Is not that sixes shouldn't call four bet. I'm sure calling four bet in position is winning, but three betting in the first place. I could see it. Like I'm not totally shocked that sixes makes it into a depolarized three bet range. I'm not totally shocked. Particularly from like a solver. That being said, it's kind of like it's not a human it's not a very human strategy to three bet pocket sixes. Okay, going to check fold. This hand blocks like tons of weak floats. 9-10, 9-7, king queen, queen x of clubs, all that stuff. Yeah, it's so I just have different. I have a whole different approach to poker than these solvers. Like, like, especially when I'm like making assumptions about a 500 zoom pool, like I really don't expect opponents at this stake to be like playing small frequency, like perfect solver ranges. Like we're playing 500 NL here. The regs at these limits are generally very weak, and people who know like these esoteric like solver three bets that like are very unnatural are probably playing 2K NL or maybe they're playing 50 NL, but not 500 NL usually. Okay, so he check calls the flop, checks the turn, and then quickly checks the river. So he's kind of saying he has like a 6. Jack 10, I guess makes sense. Yeah, I mean, blind versus blind is pretty interesting. because there's so many ways to build a 3-bet range. I mean, you can build a completely linear range, a polarized range. In my experience, like, they're both very, very playable. I think the solvers generally play linear ranges and have like very complicated blind versus blind mixing where they mix like tons of different combos at all sorts of different frequencies. Yeah, 10-7 suited would not be involved in a polarized range. For sure. It's too good of a calling hand. But it's a perfectly reasonable 3-bet in a linear range. Back when I played on global and had screen names and had like specific strategies I was doing, I was 3-betting 10-7 suited half the time in a linear strategy. Yeah, the whole solver thing, I'm like, I don't know. I need to like formulate my thoughts on solvers, but they can be a useful tool, but solvers are not how anybody plays. They're not how, like, even if you study with a solver, you still don't play like a solver. And even if your opponents are very good, they're not playing like solvers. I guess I'll use like a chess analogy where like chess engines can get into like very complicated tactical positions and perform very, very well and be like, okay, white has an edge here, but then it's like 20 moves deep in some like super theoretical line, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea for like a 2000 like rated human player to go down that line and try to navigate that position. Like, it's just not going to work. Like, and so sometimes I feel like solvers, they're kind of like the chess engine where it's like, yeah, the results are very, very accurate and they're very helpful, but like it's probably not very, you're not going to win very many games if you're spending like all your study time like studying like 25 moves into the Sveshnikov in some crazy sharp position where like you get one move out of book and then you're like lost, even though the computer can solve those situations very, very accurately. Like, a situation that's been coming up a lot for me, talking with other people who use solvers, is we'll be talking about an action, and they'll show a sim where their action is supported. Like, see, this hand is a good bluff on the river. And then I'll be like, okay, that's true. But then I look at like the other hands in that same sim, and I'm seeing like some very unhuman value shoves that, like, I know so and so is like this player is not actually using. So it's like, I think it happens a lot where people will see an outcome with their combo and be like, hey, this is good, but not quite realize that in order for that to be good, they also need to be playing a bunch of other hands differently than how they're likely playing them. Most of the solver ranges I've seen have been depolarized. But, I mean, I haven't seen... Let's see, somebody just linked me, like, the Munker ranges. Like, can take a look at those ones. But I've mostly been shown depolarized blind versus blind. Okay, not such a great situation here. I think I'm just going to fold. Watching your stream before tabling 5-minute Zoom. See, like, Strogas is a guy who I'm going to trust to use solvers well. If somebody's playing, like, high stakes and they really know what they're doing, I put a lot of trust in somebody like that and their ability to use solvers in a meaningful and helpful way. And also to, like, actually execute a complicated strategy that involves a lot of mixing and unintuitive, like, plays. I think that's the tricky part of, like, trying to mimic a solver output, is to understand, like, the unintuitive stuff that it's doing. Okay, so here's my overarching viewpoint on these solvers. Like, I know a ton of folks that study with solvers a lot, and an overwhelming percentage of them are, like, very nitty regs. Like, they have some bluffs, but mostly in the easy spots to bluff, and they're not, like, they're just not aggressive. They don't have, like, aggressive raising ranges, and like, from everything I understand, solvers are very aggressive. And they do a ton of small leading, and they do a ton of bluffing and raising on all these streets. And solvers are like when we look at, like, the Libretus hands, we just see, like, tons of aggression all across the board in all of these, like, weird spots where normal humans are not aggressive. And so I see that, and then I see, like, these kind of, like, nittier regs on the tighter side studying with solvers a bunch, and they just remain nit regs, and I'm just like, well, something is disconnected here. Like, do you guys kind of see where I'm coming from? Like, I said thank you for the host. If I opened Jack 2 suited on the button, that is too loose. I probably did that, but that's too loose. I usually start with Jack 4 suited, and I fold Jack 2 and Jack 3. Yeah, node locking is good. You know, using solvers to learn things is good. I've definitely learned a lot watching people sim stuff and like showing like if you have a super strong player like Sauce explaining shit, solvers are very helpful. Be like, oh, if I change this suit, this happens.